a billionaire CEO, a struggling teacher. When he invited 3 women to dinner with one hidden agenda, only one passed his test. But she was never supposed to steal his heart.
I'm not looking for a date for myself. I'm looking for someone who could connect with Noah.
So this was some kind of test? You weren't honest with any of us.
What started as a calculated plan to find help for his disabled son became something he never expected. But when their secret was exposed to the world, everything they built was threatened.
I won't be bought, Julian. I'll spend time with Noah because I want to, not because you're paying me.
I've been surviving, not living. You made me realize that's not enough for him or for me.
But when scandal threatens to destroy them both, will love be enough to overcome the lies that brought them together? A man who controlled everything was about to lose control of his heart. Before we get into the story, comment below where in the world you're watching from today. Sierra Monroe glanced around the staff room of Little Stars Preschool as she gathered her things to leave. The afternoon sun streamed through the windows, casting a warm glow on the colorful walls covered with children's artwork. "You're in a hurry today," said Melanie, her co-worker and closest friend at the school. "Hot date?" Sierra laughed. "Hardly. I haven't had a date in months." "That's because you spend all your time with the kids or volunteering," Melanie said, shaking her head. "You need to get out more." "I'm happy with my life," Sierra insisted, though sometimes the quiet of her small apartment did feel a little too empty. "Sierra, can I see you for a minute before you go?" From a company called Elite Connections. They're a high-end matchmaking service. Just then, Principal Jenkins appeared in the doorway. Sierra followed her boss to her office, wondering if there was a problem with one of her students. "I received an interesting call today," Principal Jenkins said, taking a seat behind her desk. Sierra raised her eyebrows. "A matchmaking service? Called the school? Apparently your name was recommended to them. They're hosting a private dinner tomorrow night for a special client. They specifically requested you. They're offering a $25,000 donation to our school if you attend." "Me? Why would they want me?" Principal Jenkins smiled. "Because you're wonderful, Sierra, but that's not all. $25,000, just for me to go to dinner." Sierra's mouth fell open. "Yes, for our art program and new playground equipment." She thought about little Zoe's face when she'd had to tell her they didn't have enough watercolor paper for everyone. Sierra's mind raced. That kind of money would make a huge difference for the kids. She'd borrowed it from Melanie, who had insisted she needed to dress to impress. But Sierra had drawn the line at the stiletto heels, opting instead for comfortable low heels she could actually walk in. "What's the catch?" she asked suspiciously. "They said it's a blind date with a successful businessman. They both looked like they'd stepped out of a fashion magazine. What kind of man paid this much money just to have dinner with someone?" "Just dinner, no obligations, but I told them I would only pass along the message if they assured me it was completely respectable." Sierra bit her lip. "I don't know." The second woman, with shiny dark hair and a designer dress, gave Sierra a cold once-over. "Think about what we could do with that donation," Principal Jenkins said. "But no pressure, it's completely your choice." "Really? How did you get invited to this?" Sierra thought about the outdated playground equipment and how the art supplies were always running low. "Okay," she said finally, "I'll do it." The next evening, Sierra stood outside the glass elevator of the Pinnacle Tower, smoothing down her simple blue dress. He wore noise-canceling headphones and was looking down at a tablet in his lap. As the elevator climbed higher and higher, Sierra's stomach knotted with nerves. "This is my son, Noah." He was tall with broad shoulders, dark hair, and intense eyes. He wore an expensive suit that fit him perfectly, but what caught Sierra's attention was the child he was pushing in a wheelchair. The doors opened to reveal a stunning rooftop restaurant. A hostess in a sleek black dress approached her. The boy didn't look up, completely focused on his tablet. "Ms. Monroe, welcome to Celestial. I'm Vanessa from Elite Connections." "I just remembered I have an early meeting tomorrow. I should probably go." Sierra was led to a private section of the restaurant where 2 women were already seated. "This is Alexis," Vanessa said, gesturing to a tall blonde woman with perfect makeup. "And this is Tiffany. If that's a problem, you're welcome to leave. The car service is still available." Without thinking too much about it, she stood up and moved to the empty chair next to him. No offense, but this isn't what I signed up for. The donation to your school will be made regardless. She noticed he was playing a game with colorful shapes. Ladies, this is Sierra, Vanessa continued. Your host will join you shortly. Please enjoy the champagne. When he didn't respond, she smiled anyway. Julian didn't seem surprised or particularly upset by their departure. Everyone deserves to be spoken to directly, whether they can answer back the same way or not. As Vanessa walked away, Sierra sat down, feeling immediately out of place. So what do you do? Alexis asked, sipping her champagne. I'm a preschool teacher, Sierra replied. Tiffany raised an eyebrow. Before Sierra could answer, Alexis cut in. I heard he's a tech CEO, super rich and handsome. I love working with kids. They're honest in a way adults rarely are. Thank you for telling me. He seems very comfortable with you. Then after a pause, his mother died in the accident. I heard he has a mansion in the Hamptons and another in Aspen, Tiffany added, and he's looking to settle down. Julian helped position the plate in front of his son, who began to eat methodically without looking up. Sierra took a small sip of her champagne, wondering what she was doing here among these women who clearly had different priorities than she did. He was also injured in an accident 2 years ago that affected his mobility. A few minutes later, the restaurant fell quiet. Sierra turned to see a man entering the private dining area. The boy looked about 8 years old, with the same dark hair as the man. His breathing quickened and he began rocking slightly in his chair. Ladies, the man said, his voice deep and controlled. I'm Julian Vale. Thank you for coming tonight. The atmosphere instantly changed. Alexis and Tiffany exchanged uncomfortable glances. Julian asked thoughtful questions, revealing a sharp intelligence behind his reserved demeanor. Each one is different, but most find comfort in having some control when things feel overwhelming. You can keep that, she told Noah with a smile. It's blue, my favorite color. This is just for you if you want it. Your son will be joining us? Tiffany asked, her smile strained. The noise is too much, he said, reaching for Noah's headphones to adjust them. We should go. Yes, Julian said simply. Noah goes where I go. Sierra watched as Julian carefully positioned Noah's wheelchair at the table. She placed it on the table near Noah. His breathing gradually steadied as he squeezed the ball rhythmically. I wasn't told there would be a child present, Alexis said, her voice tight. I'm looking for someone who could connect with Noah. Sierra noticed how Julian's jaw clenched slightly, but his expression remained neutral. After an awkward silence, Tiffany stood up. Me too, actually, Alexis added quickly. Julian looked uncomfortable for the first time that evening. Noah has therapists and doctors, but what he needs is someone who can engage with him naturally, someone patient and kind. Sierra watched as they both made their excuses and left, leaving her alone with Julian and Noah. You don't have to stay either, he said to Sierra. It sounds worse when you say it like that. I'd like to hire you to spend time with Noah. A few hours after school, maybe some weekends, whatever you can manage. I'll pay you well, much more than you make teaching. But I've tried traditional methods of finding help. Julian's driver jumped out to help with Noah's wheelchair. Professional caregivers who come with perfect references, but treat Noah like a task to be managed, not a child to be known. Call me if you're interested. Sierra looked at Noah, who was still absorbed in his tablet. Hi, Noah, she said softly. I'm Sierra. It's nice to meet you. Noah didn't look up or acknowledge her in any way, but Sierra didn't mind. That looks like a fun game, she said. I like the blue squares best. She gently placed her hand on the table, palm up, not reaching for him, just offering a connection if he wanted it. Elite Connections just called. They're not only making the $25,000 donation they promised, they're doubling it. $50,000 for our school. That's okay. Sometimes I don't feel like talking or touching either. Julian watched this interaction with surprise. You don't have to do that. He won't respond. That doesn't mean he doesn't understand or appreciate being included, Sierra said, looking up at Julian. Something flickered in Julian's eyes. Surprise, maybe respect. He sat down across from them. No obligation on your part. Julian was standing by the window, talking on the phone. He turned when she entered. surprise registering on his face. He quickly ended his call. But my offer stands. Noah asked about the blue lady this morning. He never asks about people. The security guard checked her ID and then directed her to a private elevator that went straight to the top floor. Julian Vale. You're a teacher? He asked. Yes, preschool. Little Stars in Midtown. You seem good with children. I'll spend time with Noah because I want to, not because you're paying me to do it. Sierra smiled. Their dinner arrived, and Sierra noticed that Noah's meal was already cut into small pieces. Noah has nonverbal autism, Julian explained, his voice matter of fact. Sierra nodded. Noah has therapy sessions on Tuesday and Thursday afternoons. Would you be willing to join us for one? To see how he responds to you in his familiar environment. Noah is a special boy who deserves to have people in his life who care about him. Not just care for him, there's a difference. He's never made anything for anyone before. Thank you. Tell him I'll keep it always. It's just the two of us, Julian said. She had a feeling her life was about to change in ways she couldn't imagine. Most people want something from me, he finally said. Money, connections, status. Nor did she see the calculating look on Tiffany's face as she typed a message to a tabloid journalist. I'm so sorry, Sierra said softly. She checked her watch. She was 15 minutes early. Julian nodded once, his expression closed. Tell me about your school, he said, clearly changing the subject. As they ate, Sierra told him about Little Stars, the children she taught and the programs they were developing. Julian stood up and walked to his desk, returning with a small blue object. Noah wanted you to have this. You must be Ms. Monroe. I'm Dr. Chen, Noah's speech therapist. They're in room 3 down the hall on the right. Halfway through the meal, Noah suddenly dropped his fork with a clatter. Julian sat in a chair against the wall, watching intently. Hi, Noah. It's nice to see you again. We're working on communication through picture cards today. Noah, can you show Sierra how you asked for a block? Julian immediately moved to his son's side. I remember you like blue, Noah. Is it okay if I help with your pattern? After a minute, Noah glanced at what she was doing. Then, to everyone's amazement, he reached for a picture card showing a blue block and pushed it towards Sierra. There was a warmth in his voice that hadn't been there before. Wait, Sierra said gently. She reached into her purse and pulled out a small, soft stress ball that she kept for anxious children at school. Noah, sometimes when I feel overwhelmed, I like to squeeze something soft, she said in a calm, even voice. That's interesting. Noah doesn't usually acknowledge new people. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, without looking up, Noah's hand moved to the ball and closed around it. Julian stared at Sierra with an expression she couldn't quite read. How did you know to do that? He asked quietly. Sierra shrugged. I work with all kinds of children. Julian sat back down, his eyes still on Sierra. For the first time that evening, Noah glanced up just for a second, looking at the blue ball in his hand before returning his attention to it. Julian's expression softened almost imperceptibly. After dinner, as they waited for the elevator, Julian cleared his throat. Thank you for staying and for being kind to Noah. You don't need to thank me for that, Sierra said. He's a wonderful boy. Julian hesitated, then said, The truth is, this dinner wasn't exactly what you were told. Sierra raised an eyebrow. What do you mean? I'm not looking for a date for myself. The elevator doors opened and they stepped inside. So this was some kind of test? Sierra asked, feeling a flicker of irritation. Not a test, exactly. More of an observation. Sierra crossed her arms. So you invited 3 women to dinner to see which one would be nice to your son? Julian winced slightly. Because it is worse. You weren't honest with any of us. The elevator reached the ground floor and the doors opened. You're right, Julian admitted as they walked through the lobby. Outside, a sleek black car waited at the curb. What are you asking me, Mr. Vale? Sierra said. Julian, please. He ran a hand through his hair. Sierra looked at Noah, who was still clutching the blue stress ball. I already have a job I love. You could do both. Please, just think about it. The driver finished helping Noah into the car. Julian handed Sierra a business card. My personal number is on the back. Sierra took the card, still unsure. The donation to the school will be made tomorrow, regardless of your decision, Julian assured her. No strings attached. He got into the car beside Noah and Sierra watched as they drove away, turning the business card over in her hands. The next morning, Sierra was helping a group of 4-year-olds with a finger painting project when Principal Jenkins called her into the hallway. "You'll never believe this," she said, her eyes wide with excitement. Sierra's paintbrush nearly fell from her hand. 50,000? Yes, and they specifically mentioned you by name, saying how impressed their client was. Sierra, what happened at that dinner? Before she could answer, Sierra's phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. The donation has been made. Sierra stared at the message, her heart tugging in her chest. Noah had noticed her, had asked about her in his own way. "Sierra?" Principal Jenkins prompted. "Is everything okay?" Sierra looked up, her mind racing. "I need to make a phone call." That afternoon, Sierra stood outside the impressive glass and steel building that housed Vale Technologies. When the doors opened, she found herself in a sleek, modern office with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. "Sierra, I didn't expect to see you in person." "I wanted to talk face-to-face," she said, "about your offer." Julian gestured to a seating area with comfortable chairs. "Please sit down. Can I get you anything?" Sierra shook her head and sat down, gathering her thoughts. "I appreciate the generous donation to the school. The kids will benefit enormously. It was the least I could do." "But," Sierra continued, "I need to be clear about something. I won't be bought." Julian frowned. "That wasn't my intention." "Maybe not consciously, but $50,000 feels a lot like pressure." Sierra leaned forward. "You're turning down the job?" Julian looked confused. "I'm turning down being hired, but I'm offering to be a friend to both of you." Sierra's voice softened. Julian was quiet for a long moment. "I'm not most people," Sierra said simply. A ghost of a smile touched Julian's lips. "No, you're not." He seemed to be considering something. Sierra nodded. "I could do Thursday after school." "Good." It was a small blue ceramic tile with a perfect handprint pressed into it. "He made it in art therapy this morning," Julian explained. Sierra took the tile carefully, deeply touched. As she left the building and stepped into the bright afternoon sunlight, Sierra looked down at the small blue tile in her hands. What she didn't see was the woman watching her from across the street, Tiffany, from the dinner. Her eyes narrowed as she took pictures with her phone. "I have a story about Julian Vale and his new friend that your readers will love." Thursday afternoon arrived quickly. Sierra found herself standing outside a modern building with Sunshine Therapy Center, written in colorful letters across the entrance. Taking a deep breath, she pushed open the door and stepped into a bright, welcoming lobby. A receptionist looked up with a smile. "I'm here for Noah Vale's session," Sierra said. "I'm Sierra Monroe." "Yes, Mr. Vale called ahead to add you to the visitors list." Sierra followed the directions and paused outside the door. Through the small window, she could see Noah sitting at a table with a woman who must be his therapist. She knocked softly and entered. Julian stood immediately. "Sierra, thank you for coming." The therapist, a woman in her 40s with kind eyes, looked up. Sierra smiled at Noah, who was focused on arranging colored blocks in a pattern. To everyone's surprise, Noah briefly looked up at the sound of Sierra's voice before returning to his blocks. Dr. Chen raised her eyebrows. "They've met before," Julian explained, his eyes on Sierra. Dr. Chen invited Sierra to sit at the table with them. Noah didn't respond, continuing to arrange the blocks he already had. "It's okay," Dr. Chen said patiently. "We can try again later." Sierra watched for a moment, then reached for one of the blue blocks on the table. She didn't touch his arrangement, but started building her own pattern with blue blocks nearby. "He's asking you for a blue block," Dr. Chen said quietly, looking impressed. Sierra smiled and handed Noah the blue block. "Here you go, Noah. Thank you for asking so nicely." Noah took the block and added it to his pattern. The adults exchanged surprised looks. "That's the first time he's used the picture cards with someone new," Julian said, his voice barely above a whisper. The rest of the session continued with similar small breakthroughs. When it was time to leave, Noah seemed reluctant to put away his blocks. "We need to go home now, Noah," Julian said gently. "We can play with blocks again tomorrow." Noah's breathing began to quicken, the beginning of distress. Sierra knelt down beside his wheelchair. "Noah, would it help if you could take just one block home? Sometimes having something in our hands makes changes easier." Noah's breathing steadied slightly. Dr. Chen quickly nodded her approval, and Sierra held out her palm with a blue block. "Chen, just this one, okay? The others need to stay here with Dr. C where Noah lives, maybe have dinner with us." Noah took the block and clutched it tightly. The transition to leaving went smoothly after that. "And," he added more quietly, "for me too." In the parking lot, Julian turned to Sierra. "That was remarkable. Would you like to come to our house?" Sierra hesitated. "I don't want to intrude." "You wouldn't be," Julian assured her. "I think it would be good for Noah." Julian's home was exactly what Sierra had expected. A sprawling modern mansion with clean lines and large windows. What she hadn't expected was how child-friendly it was inside. One entire section of the living room had been transformed into a sensory play area for Noah, with soft mats, a swing, and bins of carefully organized toys. "Your home is beautiful," Sierra said, as a housekeeper named Maria took her coat. The house was impressive but had a coldness to it, like a perfect showroom rather than a lived-in home. "Thank you. But Maria makes sure his food is still flavorful and nutritious." She waved them gently in the air, creating flowing patterns of color. "I had it completely redesigned after the accident to accommodate Noah's wheelchair and therapy equipment." Julian showed her around while Maria helped Noah get settled in his play area. "No family photos?" Sierra asked, noticing the bare walls. "The accident damaged his spine. The doctors aren't sure if he'll ever walk again." A shadow crossed Julian's face. "I put them away after Rebecca died. It was too painful to see them every day." A truck driver fell asleep at the wheel and crossed into our lane. I swerved to avoid him, but we went off the road and down an embankment. The car rolled. His voice grew strained. "Rebecca was killed instantly. Noah was in his car seat behind her. I walked away with barely a scratch." "I understand," Sierra said softly. "But Noah might like to see his mother's face sometimes." Julian was quiet for a moment. "You might be right. I never thought about it from his perspective." "You have an extraordinary way of looking at things, Sierra Monroe." In the kitchen, Maria was preparing dinner. The delicious smell of roasting chicken filled the air. "Noah has a very specific diet," Julian explained. "I think he wants to show you something. You made the best decision you could in a split second." They joined Noah in the living room. Sierra sat on the floor near him, not too close, and began playing with some colored scarves from one of the bins. With practiced movements, he opened a folder of images and scrolled until he found what he was looking for. He turned the screen towards Sierra. Noah lost his mother and his ability to walk, and his autism symptoms intensified after the trauma. He stopped speaking entirely. "You both lost so much," she said, "but you're still here for him, that matters." Before the accident, he had some words. Noah watched from the corner of his eye while spinning a fidget toy in his hands. "He loves movement and color," Julian said, sitting down in a nearby chair. "How did it happen?" Sierra asked gently. Here, there were photos. Noah as a baby, a toddler, a younger boy without a wheelchair, and there were several photos of a beautiful woman with Noah's same dark hair and eyes. Julian's face tightened. "We were driving home from a weekend trip." The guilt in his voice was unmistakable. "It wasn't your fault," Sierra said quietly. Then Julian read a story, the same one they read every night, Sierra learned, while Noah lay in his specially designed bed, still clutching the blue block. "I was driving," Julian replied, his eyes fixed on Noah. "I was responsible for their safety. It's like you have a special connection with him. Children sense when someone truly sees them, not just their challenges, but their whole selves." "My mom was a single parent, working 2 jobs. Mrs. Taylor made school feel like home. I wanted to do that for other children. You were trying to save them from a direct collision. You're good at it." After a moment, he added, "Would you consider coming back? Maybe once or twice a week? Sometimes I worry that I'm not enough for him, that he needs more than I can give." Julian shook his head slightly. Sierra's heart ached for both of them. Julian looked at her then, really looked at her, as if seeing something new. Their moment was interrupted when Noah made a soft sound and raised his hand, still clutching the blue block from therapy. "What is it, buddy?" Julian asked, moving closer. Noah pointed to Sierra, then to the block. "Or they see me as the tragic widower doing his best." "They don't really see us," Sierra asked. "I know public places can be overwhelming for him." Julian smiled, the first real smile Sierra had seen from him. "And he seems calmer when you're around." Sierra took out a bag of breadcrumbs she'd brought. It was a perfect fall day, crisp and sunny with colorful leaves drifting from the trees. With Sierra's help, he tossed them toward the water. A duck swam over and snatched up the bread, making Noah's eyes widen. "I was afraid it would be too much for him." Sierra moved closer. "What is it, Noah?" "It's like your blocks, but everywhere." Each visit brought new small breakthroughs with Noah, and Sierra found herself looking forward to these times more than anything else. Noah carefully placed the blue block on the floor, then reached for his tablet. This wasn't just about helping a child anymore. She was beginning to care about Julian too, and that complicated things. It was a photo of building blocks arranged in a complex pattern, all blue. "That's beautiful, Noah," Sierra said sincerely. "Did you make that?" Noah didn't answer directly, but he made the same soft sound again, almost like a hum of agreement. "Now." "He's never shown his pictures to anyone but me," Julian said, his voice filled with wonder. "I've just been so careful to keep Noah out of the spotlight. In just a few weeks, you've brought light back into our lives. Despite how it ended, it was the best day we've had in a long time. They're always looking for stories about the reclusive Julian Vale and his tragic life. I don't want Noah exposed to that." Sierra's heart pounded as his lips gently touched hers in a soft, questioning kiss. Later, after a dinner where Noah actually ate everything on his plate, unusual according to Julian, it was time for Noah's bedtime routine. "Would you like to see his room?" Julian asked as Maria began clearing the table. Sierra hurried to keep up, confused by the sudden change. Noah's bedroom was unlike the rest of the house. Checking it during her break, she found several messages from Melanie. "Rebecca," Julian said simply, following Sierra's gaze. "It's been a big day for all of us." The bedtime routine was clearly well established. Noah changed into pajamas with Maria's help, while Julian prepared his medications. When Noah's eyes began to droop, Julian carefully tucked the blankets around him and turned on a star-shaped nightlight that projected constellations onto the ceiling. "Good night, buddy," he whispered, kissing Noah's forehead. Sierra stood in the doorway, deeply moved by the tender care Julian showed his son. "Would you like a cup of coffee before you go?" Julian asked as they left Noah's room. The words blurred as she read about herself being described as an opportunistic nobody who had manipulated her way into the life of one of Atlanta's most eligible widowers. They sat in the kitchen with steaming mugs while Maria finished cleaning up and then left for the evening. The first result made her stomach drop. The story claimed that Julian had hired Sierra as part of a calculated plan to find a replacement mother for his son, and that Sierra was cashing in on his grief. His voice was cold with anger. "My lawyer is already working to get the article taken down, but the damage is done. He's paying her a fortune to spend time with his son. It's all very calculated." "Noah responded to you in ways I haven't seen since before the accident," Julian said, his hands wrapped around his mug. Sierra smiled. "Is that why you became a teacher?" "Yes, but it wasn't like they're making it sound." Sierra's voice caught. "The article makes it sound so transactional." "I was grateful for how kind you were to Noah. Partly. I also had an amazing preschool teacher when I was little." Julian nodded thoughtfully. "You're right. I wasn't completely honest at first, but nothing about how I feel now is dishonest. What happened between us yesterday? And I've received calls from 3 parents asking if you're leaving to work for the Vale family." "I'd like that," Sierra said honestly. "Noah is a special boy. The article had been picked up by larger news outlets, and parents were openly speculating about Sierra's relationship with Julian Vale as they picked up their children. But Sierra, he wasn't honest with you from the start. That dinner was a setup. Are you okay? But yes, he should have been upfront about it. This is crazy. You weren't honest from the beginning, Julian. You set up that dinner under false pretenses. Jay. He is, Julian agreed, pride and sadness mingling in his voice. You're a wonderful father, Julian. The way you care for him, understand him, it's beautiful to see. Something shifted in Julian's expression. Most people see his disability first. She had fallen for Julian and Noah, allowed them into her heart. Now she wondered if she'd just been part of Julian's carefully controlled plan all along. I see you, Sierra said simply. Their eyes met, and for a moment something electric passed between them. Julian looked away first. It's getting late. I should call you a car. Outside, waiting for the car Julian had insisted on ordering, Sierra looked up at the starry sky and wondered what she was getting herself into. You're the one who talked to the reporters. He invited us to that dinner like we were items to be inspected and rejected. Nobody rejects me. Over the next few weeks, Sierra fell into a routine of visiting Noah and Julian twice a week. Thursday afternoons after therapy and Sunday afternoons. I just wanted to let you know that there's more where that came from. She says she has more photos and information about your selection process. I think we need to talk, but not tonight. I need time to process everything, but please know that whatever I did wrong at the beginning, what's grown between us since then is real, at least for me. The blue flowers seemed to mock her from the coffee table. Had she really been naive enough to think that someone like Julian Vale could be interested in a preschool teacher from a modest background? I have other photos, other details about Julian's selection process for finding someone for his son. Noah doesn't deserve to have his life exposed this way. One Sunday in late October, Julian suggested they take Noah to the park. Now you know what kind of man you're really dealing with, one who auditions women like they're applying for a job. In just a few weeks, she had grown to care deeply for him. Whatever his intentions, the result was a mess. The thought of not seeing him again made her heart ache. Are you sure? I think it's worth trying, Julian said. We can't stay in the house forever. At the park, Noah was tense at first, his hands gripping the arms of his wheelchair tightly. Sierra knelt beside him. Look at all the colors, Noah, she said, pointing to the red and gold leaves. Gradually, Noah relaxed. They found a quiet spot near a small pond where ducks were swimming. Would you like to feed the ducks, Noah? To Julian's surprise, Noah held out his hand for some crumbs. Julian took a photo with his phone. Noah looking alert and engaged, Sierra kneeling beside him with a warm smile, both of them surrounded by autumn leaves. This is the first time we've been to the park since the accident, Julian told Sierra quietly as they watched Noah continue to feed the ducks. Sometimes we underestimate children because we're trying to protect them, Sierra said, but they're often stronger than we think. Julian looked at her with that same intense gaze that always made her heart beat faster. You've changed things for us, Sierra. Before she could respond, they heard a click and whirring sound nearby. Julian's head snapped up, scanning the area. What was that? Sierra asked. Sounded like a camera, Julian said, his voice tight. Let's go. He quickly turned Noah's wheelchair and headed back toward the car. Julian, what's wrong? I've dealt with paparazzi before, he said tersely. In the car, Julian was quiet, his jaw clenched. Sierra put a gentle hand on his arm. Hey, it might not have been a photographer. It could have been anyone taking pictures in the park. Julian sighed. Maybe. I'm sorry for overreacting. He looked down at her hand on his arm, then covered it with his own. Thank you for today. Their eyes met again, and this time Julian didn't look away. Slowly, he leaned toward her. When they broke apart, Julian looked almost surprised, as if he hadn't planned to do that. I'm sorry, he said quickly. I shouldn't have... Don't apologize, Sierra interrupted, her voice steady despite her racing pulse. I'm not sorry it happened. Julian's expression softened. Neither am I, if I'm being honest. In the back seat, Noah made a small sound, and they both turned to see him watching them with curious eyes. Let's go home, Julian said, smiling at his son. The next morning, Sierra was helping her students with a craft project when her phone buzzed repeatedly with text messages. Sierra, have you seen the news? There's an article about you and Julian Vale. People are talking about it all over social media. With growing dread, Sierra searched Julian's name online. Tech billionaire's gold-digging scheme. Julian Vale pays preschool teacher to play mommy. The article featured several photos. Sierra entering Julian's building, the three of them at the park, and even the moment Julian had kissed her. The article quoted an unnamed source close to Vale saying, "He set up a fake blind date to screen potential women." Sierra felt sick. Her phone rang. Julian. "Have you seen it?" he asked without preamble, his voice tense. "Yes. Julian, who would say those things about us?" It had to be someone from that dinner, someone who knew about the setup. "The school's getting calls from reporters," Sierra said, feeling overwhelmed, "and parents are starting to ask questions." "I'll fix this," Julian promised. "Just don't talk to any reporters." "Julian, did you really pay the school $50,000 because of me?" There was a pause. "And you are paying me to spend time with him in a way. The expensive dinners, the gifts for my classroom. Sierra, you know it's not like that." "Do I?" She could hear him sigh heavily. "I need some time to think," Sierra interrupted. "This is all too much." Before he could respond, Principal Jenkins appeared at her classroom door with a concerned expression. "Sierra, there are reporters outside the school." "I have to go," Sierra told Julian, then hung up. By the end of the school day, the situation had only gotten worse. Melanie caught up with her as she was leaving. "I don't know what to think," Sierra admitted. "Everything happened so naturally between us. I never thought about his money." "Of course you didn't," Melanie said loyally. "Anyone who knows you would understand that. He was trying to find someone who would be good for Noah," Sierra defended him, then stopped herself. "And now your reputation and job are on the line," Melanie pointed out. "Is he worth it?" Sierra didn't have an answer. When she got home, there was a delivery waiting. A huge arrangement of blue flowers with a note from Julian. "I'm so sorry about the article. Please call me when you're ready to talk." Instead of calling, Sierra curled up on her couch and cried. Her phone rang again, an unknown number. "Hello?" she answered cautiously. "Is this Sierra Monroe?" a woman's voice asked. "Yes. Who's this?" "Tiffany Williams. We met at the dinner with Julian Vale." Sierra sat up straight. "Smart girl," Tiffany said with a cold laugh. "Why are you doing this?" Sierra asked. "Julian Vale thinks he can control everything and everyone." "You're hurting an innocent child," Sierra said angrily. "Collateral damage," Tiffany said dismissively. "Besides, I'm doing you a favor." After Tiffany hung up, Sierra sat in stunned silence. Then she reached for her phone and texted Julian. "I just got a call from Tiffany from the dinner. She's the one who went to the press." Julian's response came immediately. "I understand. Take all the time you need." Sierra put down her phone without replying. More importantly, what about Noah? But she couldn't ignore the facts. Julian had orchestrated their meeting, paid a small fortune to her school, and now her reputation was being dragged through the mud. With tears streaming down her face, Sierra picked up her phone one more time and sent a final message to Julian. "I can't do this. Not now. Maybe not ever. Please don't contact me again." Then she blocked his number, buried her face in a pillow, and let the tears come freely. Every morning she forced herself out of bed and put on a brave face for her students, but inside she felt hollow. Sometimes walking away was the only choice that made sense, even when it broke your heart to do it. Principal Jenkins had called her in for a discussion about professional boundaries, which was humiliating, even though the older woman had been kind about it. The next 2 weeks were the hardest Sierra had ever experienced. "I blocked his number. It's better this way." The scandal had died down somewhat, but she still caught parents whispering when they thought she couldn't hear. "I know you had good intentions," Principal Jenkins had said, "and the donation has done wonders for our school. But you need to be more careful about your personal relationships, especially with someone so high profile," she asked one afternoon as they cleaned up the classroom. Melanie was the only one who truly understood how much Sierra was hurting. "Have you talked to him at all? I was just so hurt and embarrassed by the article. Noah had regressed significantly since Sierra's sudden disappearance, refusing to engage in therapy and barely eating. Mr. Vale, Noah won't take his medicine again. Sierra shook her head. Is it? You've been miserable for 2 weeks. I'm fine, Sierra insisted, but the tremble in her voice betrayed her. He hadn't let it out of his sight since she left. If he thinks I abandoned him like... She couldn't finish the sentence. You miss them, Melanie said gently. Not just Julian, but Noah too. Sierra's eyes filled with tears. I keep wondering how Noah's doing, if he's confused about why I disappeared. His lawyers had managed to get the worst of the articles taken down and had threatened to sue Tiffany Williams, but the damage was done. It's not that simple. He wasn't honest from the start. Julian wondered, not for the first time, if he had made a terrible mistake by bringing Sierra into their lives only to lose her. How can I trust anything between us is real? Like his mom did when she died, Melanie finished softly. Oh, Sierra, the house felt emptier than ever. I didn't think about that when I cut things off. Maybe you should unblock Julian's number. Just hear what he has to say. The kind of withdrawal we're seeing isn't just about his autism. He's grieving. For a child with Noah's challenges, that kind of repeated loss can be devastating. You've been running your household and caring for Noah with admirable dedication, but you haven't dealt with your own grief. He's regressing. I don't see how that's relevant to Noah's current state. I've given everything to Noah since the accident. When was the last time you allowed yourself to really grieve for Rebecca? To acknowledge your pain, instead of channeling it into controlling every aspect of your and Noah's lives? Not taking his medication? Not engaging in therapy? Noah needs you to be fully present, not just physically but emotionally. Sierra wiped her eyes. Across town, in the Vale mansion, Julian sat in his home office staring at his computer screen without seeing it. The last 2 weeks had been a nightmare. Maria appeared at the door. Julian sighed and rubbed his eyes. I'll be right there. In Noah's room, his son was sitting in his wheelchair by the window, clutching the blue block Sierra had given him. There's someone here who would like to speak with you. For Rebecca, for Noah, for the man he used to be, and for the connection with Sierra that he had managed to ruin before it had really begun. And instead of listening, he had tried to fix the situation his way, with money and lawyers and control. Next to it was the photo he had taken at the park, Noah, Sierra, and the autumn leaves. He picked it up, running his thumb over Sierra's smiling face. Had he been using control as a substitute for healing? Had his attempts to protect Noah actually been about protecting himself from more pain? Hey, buddy, Julian said softly, kneeling beside him. It's time for your medicine. It will help you feel better. Because my nephew is suffering, and I think you might be the only one who can help. Noah turned away, making a low, distressed sound. I know, Julian said, his heart breaking. I miss her too. He had tried everything to contact Sierra. Emails, flowers, even going to the school, but she had refused to see him. The article, and finding out how Julian set up that dinner. Julian is beside himself with worry. Eliza's eyes were sad but kind. Julian told me everything. He knows he made a mistake by not being honest from the start. He's been through so much, that little boy. Noah, please take your medicine. For me? His son looked at him then, and the sadness in his eyes was unbearable. Eliza's voice caught. My sister would have hated seeing what he's done to himself, living like a recluse, focusing only on Noah's care while neglecting his own healing. Later that evening, after finally getting Noah to bed, Julian sat alone in his living room with a glass of bourbon. He took Noah to the park, something he hasn't done since the accident. He smiled again. And Noah... Eliza's eyes filled with tears. Noah started engaging with the world again. Do you know how miraculous that is? Julian told me how you refused to be paid for spending time with Noah, how you connected with him when everyone else gave up. His phone rang. It was Dr. Chen, Noah's therapist. The article made it sound like I was taking advantage of them. I try to be, though Julian makes it difficult sometimes. After Rebecca died, he shut everyone out, including family. He blamed himself entirely for the accident. Before you decide, I want to show you something. Mr. Vale, I'm sorry to call so late, but I'm concerned about Noah. I know. It's more than that, Dr. Chen interrupted. Noah is showing signs of depression. Julian's throat tightened. Because of Sierra. That's who Julian is. Someone who can't see his own worth, only his mistakes. There were pictures of her with Julian, with Noah as a baby, with Eliza. He formed a bond with her, and now she's gone. Just like his mother. That's all. He's in the car outside right now. He was covered in blood, holding Noah, and he kept saying, I couldn't save her. He's been sitting out there for an hour, trying to work up the courage to come in. I tried, but I couldn't save her. The doctors said he had pulled them both from the wreckage before the car caught fire. He saved Noah's life. The thought of him sitting there, waiting and uncertain, was so at odds with the powerful, controlled man she had first met. He's lost his way since losing her, but the man you started to care for, that's the real Julian. The one who existed before grief and guilt took over. His heart jumped and he quickly got out to meet her. Julian looked confused. She went in to talk to you? What do I do? Julian asked, desperation creeping into his voice. She won't talk to me. About the accident, about Rebecca being pregnant. Dr. Chen was quiet for a moment. Mr. Vale, may I speak frankly? Please. Noah isn't the only one who needs to process loss. Julian stiffened. It's entirely relevant. Children sense when their parents are emotionally distant. Me? What do you want me to say? That I'm falling apart? This wasn't the controlled, measured Julian she'd first met. This was a man at his breaking point. That I don't know how to help my son. That I miss you so much it physically hurts. Managing. The words hit Julian like a physical blow. Everything except your vulnerability, Dr. Chen said gently. Dr. Chen says he's depressed. He won't engage in therapy, barely eats. Julian's voice was strained, about what I was looking for, about why the other women left. I was trying to protect Noah from more disappointment, but that's no excuse. I've tried everything, Sierra. My lawyers have threatened Tiffany with a lawsuit for invasion of privacy. She's agreed to retract her statements. Nothing helps. When they arrived, the house felt different to Sierra. Less perfect, more lived in. There were toys scattered in the living room and dishes in the sink. It looks more like a home this way. Julian was speechless. No one had spoken to him this directly since Rebecca died. Sierra asked, the whole truth this time? I need to go, he said finally. Thank you for your concern about Noah. He hung up before she could respond, but her words echoed in his mind. And I had this idea that maybe I could find someone who would actually care about Noah, not just pretend to for a paycheck. But everyone I hired to work with him, nannies, caregivers, they all treated him like a job, a challenge to be managed. It sounds terrible when you say it out loud. Julian walked to the mantel where he kept his car keys in a small dish. We can talk privately at my house. Julian handed her a cup of coffee. The truth is, I never expected to feel anything for whoever stayed. That wasn't part of the plan. She had seen through his walls from the beginning, had called him out on his lack of transparency. For the first time since the accident, Julian Vale let himself cry. I'll meet you back here in 5 minutes. I just want you back in Noah's life. He needs you. Someone who could bring some warmth into his life while I focused on his medical care and therapy. It was a simple picture done in blue crayon, what looked like 3 stick figures. It's the first thing he's drawn since you left. Going through the motions, doing everything right for Noah on the outside, while completely shut down on the inside. You made me realize that's not enough, for him or for me. Julian sat down across from her. I didn't expect someone like you, Sierra. 3 figures, a tall one, a smaller one in what looked like a wheelchair, and a third one with curly hair like hers. Yes, Dr. Chen asked him to draw what he wanted most. He drew the 3 of us. Someone who would see through all my walls and make me question everything about how I've been living these past 2 years. The next morning, Sierra was surprised when Principal Jenkins called her into her office before the school day started. This wasn't the powerful CEO used to getting his way. Maria has been taking time off to care for her mother, and I haven't been very good at keeping up. I started to feel again when you came into our lives. Hope, happiness, fear, all of it, and it terrified me. This was just a man who loved his son and was trying to make things right. "Is everything okay?" she asked, worried that there had been more complaints from parents. "That depends," Principal Jenkins said, gesturing for her to sit. Sierra's heart jumped, thinking it might be Julian, but instead, a slender woman with dark hair and a kind face stood up from the corner chair. "Sierra, this is Rebecca's sister, Eliza Walsh," Principal Jenkins explained. "She asked to meet with you privately." Sierra's mouth fell open in surprise. "Rebecca, as in—" "Noah's mother," Eliza confirmed. "Julian's late wife." Principal Jenkins discreetly left the room, closing the door behind her. "I don't understand," Sierra said. "Why would you want to meet me?" Eliza sat down across from her. "Noah, is he okay?" Sierra asked, immediately concerned. "No, he's not. He's withdrawn again, refusing to eat properly or participate in therapy." Sierra felt a pang of guilt. "I never meant to hurt Noah." "I know all about it," Eliza said. "You're close to them?" Sierra asked. Eliza nodded. "He told me a little about it," Sierra said softly. "Did he tell you he was driving Rebecca to the hospital because she wasn't feeling well? That she was pregnant with their second child?" Sierra gasped. "No, he didn't. Julian blames himself not just for Rebecca's death, but for their unborn child's as well. He's been carrying that guilt for 2 years." Sierra didn't know what to say. The revelation about the pregnancy added a new layer to Julian's grief that made her heart ache for him. "Why are you telling me this?" she finally asked. "Because in the short time you were in their lives, Julian started to change." Sierra looked down at her hands. "Anyone who spent 5 minutes with you would know that's not true," Eliza said firmly. "I care about Noah," Sierra admitted. "And Julian too." "Then please just talk to him, that's all I'm asking." Sierra hesitated. "I don't know if I can trust him." Eliza reached into her purse and pulled out a small photo album. She opened the album to reveal photos of Rebecca, smiling, vibrant, full of life. "My sister was the most honest person I knew," Eliza said. "She would never have fallen in love with Julian if he wasn't a good man at heart." Sierra studied the photos, noting how happy they all looked, how much Noah resembled his mother. "The night of the accident," Eliza continued, "Julian called me from the hospital." Sierra closed her eyes, imagining the scene, the terror and heartbreak Julian must have felt. He's never told anyone that part of the story, she realized, because he only focuses on his failure to save Rebecca, not on his success in saving Noah, Eliza confirmed. Sierra was quiet for a long moment. "What do you want me to do?" "Just talk to him." Sierra's eyes widened. "He's here?" Eliza nodded. "He doesn't know I came in to talk to you first." Sierra looked out the window and saw Julian's black car parked across the street. "Okay," she said finally. "I'll talk to him. But I can't promise anything more than that." Eliza smiled. "That's all anyone can ask for." Julian was staring at the school entrance, debating for the 100th time whether he should go in, when he saw Sierra walking toward his car. "Sierra," he said, his voice rough with emotion. "Thank you for coming out." She crossed her arms, keeping some distance between them. "Your sister-in-law is very persuasive." "Eliza? She told me things you didn't." Julian flinched visibly. "I didn't want your pity." "It's not pity to share your pain with someone who cares about you," Sierra said. "That's called trust, Julian." He looked down. "I'm not good at that. Not anymore." "I know. But you need to be for Noah's sake. And your own." "Noah misses you," Julian said, meeting her eyes again. "He carries that blue block everywhere. Won't let anyone touch it." Sierra's composure cracked slightly. "How is he?" "Not good." "And what about you?" she asked. "How are you doing?" The question seemed to catch him off guard. "That's not what I asked." Julian ran a hand through his hair, a gesture of frustration she recognized. The raw honesty in his voice made Sierra's breath catch. "I'm sorry about the article," he continued when she didn't respond. "It's not just about the article," Sierra said. "It's about trust. You weren't honest from the beginning." "You're right," Julian admitted. "I should have told you the truth at that dinner. A group of parents walked by, openly staring at them. Sierra shifted uncomfortably. "We shouldn't talk here, people are watching." "Then come with me," Julian said. "Just for a little while. Noah's at therapy with Dr. Chen." Sierra hesitated. "I have class in 20 minutes. "Please, Sierra, 1 hour. That's all I'm asking." She looked at his face, the dark circles under his eyes, the desperation in his expression. "Let me tell Principal Jenkins I need to take a personal hour." The drive to Julian's house was quiet, both of them unsure where to begin. "Sorry about the mess," Julian said, noticing her surprise. "It's fine," Sierra said. Julian led her to the kitchen and started making coffee, his movements mechanical. "Why did you really set up that dinner?" Julian's hand stilled on the coffee maker. "Noah's doctors had been telling me for months that he needed more than just therapy and medical care. He needed emotional connections." He turned to face her. "I was desperate. A colleague mentioned this exclusive matchmaking service. So you set up a test," Sierra said, "to see who would stay when faced with a child with disabilities." Julian nodded, looking ashamed. "It was manipulative," Sierra agreed, "but I understand why you did it. You were trying to protect Noah. That doesn't make it right." Sierra took a sip of her coffee, buying time to steady her emotions. "And what was the plan exactly?" "Find someone kind and patient who could connect with Noah." "What do you mean?" Julian's eyes met hers. "I've been surviving, not living." He reached across the table, not quite touching her hand. Sierra felt her resolve weakening. "Julian, I'm not asking for anything you're not ready to give," he said quickly. Sierra looked around the kitchen, noticing a child's drawing magnetized to the refrigerator. "Did Noah draw that?" she asked, surprised. Julian followed her gaze. "Yes, with his art therapist yesterday." Sierra stood up and walked to the refrigerator to look more closely at the picture. "Is that supposed to be me?" she asked softly. Julian came to stand beside her. Sierra felt tears welling in her eyes. "I've missed him so much, both of you." "Sierra," Julian said, his voice low and intense, "I know I made mistakes. I know I hurt you. But please don't punish Noah for my failures. I'm not trying to punish anyone. I'm trying to protect myself. My reputation, my career." She turned to face him, suddenly aware of how close they were standing. "And I'll respect whatever boundaries you set. If you want to only see Noah during therapy sessions, or only at your school, whatever makes you comfortable," Sierra asked. "What happened between us at the park?" "I understand," Julian said. "Whatever you want, or don't want, from me." "And what about us?" Julian's expression softened. "That was the most real thing I've felt in 2 years, but I'll follow your lead, Sierra." But the man who had kissed her so tenderly in the park, the man who loved his son fiercely, the man who was standing before her now, vulnerable and honest in a way he hadn't been before. "Ms. Monroe, you're here." His eyes were fixed on her, wider than she'd ever seen them. For the first time since the article came out, Sierra allowed herself to really look at Julian. Not the wealthy CEO or the grieving widower. "He wants you to have it," he whispered. "I need time," she said finally, "to think about all of this." Julian nodded, disappointment and understanding mingling in his eyes. "Of course." The sound of the front door opening interrupted them. Maria appeared with Noah in his wheelchair, back early from therapy. Julian started, his voice thick with emotion. "I think he wants to make sure you'll come back." This child, who had already lost so much, was offering her his most precious possession, just to ensure she wouldn't disappear from his life again. "He's making sure you have a reason to return." "Mr. Vale, Dr. Chen cancelled the second half of—" Maria stopped when she saw Sierra, her eyes widening. But Sierra wasn't looking at Maria. Her attention was completely on Noah, who had gone very still in his wheelchair. "I don't need the block to come back. I promise I'll visit you again. You can keep your special blue block." "Hi, Noah," she said softly, kneeling down to his level. "I've missed you." Noah made a small sound, not quite a word, but definitely a response. His hand clutched the blue block, knuckles white. Is that the same blue block from therapy? You've taken good care of it, Sierra said, smiling through tears. Then, to everyone's shock, Noah extended his arm, holding out the block to Sierra. It was the most deliberate communication she had ever seen from him. Julian watched, hardly daring to breathe. Sierra gently touched the block, but didn't take it. That's your special block, Noah. I gave it to you, Ave, a reporter from the Daily Post. She says if you don't give a statement, she'll run a follow-up story with new information from Tiffany Williams. But if this continues to disrupt the school, we may need to discuss your position here. It was the school. Noah pushed his hand toward her more insistently, making another sound, frustrated this time. Principal Jenkins says, if the disruptions continue, my job could be at risk. Sierra's voice was steady, despite her inner turmoil. I need to go. Sierra looked at Julian, confused. I think I have to go now, but I meant what I said. I'll come back to visit you soon. She was tired of being pushed around by Tiffany, by the press, by circumstances. The realization broke Sierra's heart. Oh, Noah, she said, tears spilling down her cheeks. Sierra looked at Julian and Noah, the hope in both their faces, the progress they'd made just in the few minutes she'd been there. Whatever you decide to do, I'm here. You don't have to face this alone. I'm going to end this, once and for all. Noah lowered his hand slightly, watching her intently, as if trying to determine if she was telling the truth. Whatever happened next, she knew one thing for certain. She couldn't walk away from Noah again. This is Diane Parker from the Daily Post. And perhaps, she realized as Julian's hand held hers, she didn't want to walk away from Julian either. I know Tiffany Williams is feeding you information, and I know she has a personal vendetta against Julian because he didn't choose her at that dinner. Sierra squared her shoulders and pushed open the door. And if that's not enough to save my job or my reputation, then so be it. I won't hide anymore. Before you print another word, I think you should hear the full story, not Tiffany's version. I promise, Sierra repeated, holding his gaze. Once they were seated, she looked directly at the reporter. Perhaps you two could talk in the conference room. School is about to let out, and we need the office. She has text messages suggesting the entire relationship was staged. After a long moment, Noah pulled the block back to his chest, but his eyes stayed on Sierra. Julian knelt beside them both, one hand on Noah's wheelchair, the other hesitantly reaching towards Sierra. And if you print it, Julian's lawyers will sue your paper for everything it's worth. I'm following a story about a powerful man who may be manipulating people. The real story is about a grieving father trying to do right by his son, making mistakes along the way because he's human. But you have to promise to print the whole story, not just the sensational parts. And it's about a boy who's beginning to connect with the world again after tremendous loss, because that's what these stories are doing. Noah Vale lost his mother in a tragic accident. He has autism and uses a wheelchair. The last thing he needs is more trauma in his life. Because Julian and I barely texted until we'd known each other for weeks. Does this mean you'll give us another chance? He asked quietly. I'm a preschool teacher who lives in a one-bedroom apartment. And the money, the donation to the school. I drive a 10-year-old car. Does that sound like someone who was plotting to land a billionaire? Before Sierra could answer, her phone rang. I have to take this, she said, stepping away. Hello? I refused payment for the time I spent with them. I was there because I cared, not because I was being paid. He looked up when Sierra entered, concern evident on his face. People are more complicated than the stories we tell about them. I won't apologize for that, and I won't let Tiffany's jealousy hurt them anymore. Sierra, it's Principal Jenkins. I hate to interrupt your personal time, but there's someone here insisting on speaking with you. This was my decision, not his. Sierra closed her eyes, the brief moment of connection with Noah and Julian shattering. Mr. Vale, would you care to comment for my article? School is dismissed, and we have parents arriving. What should I do? She asked. With a nod to Julian, she left. That's your decision, Principal Jenkins said. The implied threat was clear. Tell her I'll be there in 20 minutes, Sierra said, then hung up. Sierra straightened her shoulders. I'm done hiding and apologizing for caring about you and Noah. What's wrong? Julian asked, seeing her expression. Slowly and with complete honesty between us. There's a reporter at the school threatening to run another story. Am I being fired because of the publicity? I'll come with you, Julian said immediately. We'll face this together. But I'm trying to find a compromise that protects both you and the school. What if I fund an extended special needs program at the school, with Sierra as the lead teacher? It would be a separate classroom, away from the media attention, focused on integrating children with disabilities into mainstream education. Sierra shook her head. No, that will just make it worse. She knelt in front of Noah one more time. And there are many families who can't afford the kind of specialized care he receives. This program could help dozens of children, while giving Sierra a new role that highlights her talents. But the board is concerned about the disruption. They're suggesting you take a paid leave of absence until the media attention dies down. Noah made a small distressed sound, his hand tightening on the blue block. I promise, Sierra repeated, gently touching his arm. As Julian walked her to the door, Sierra could feel her resolve hardening. Take me back to the school, she said to Julian. Julian studied her face. What are you going to do? You really have changed, haven't you? And I'm happy to meet with them to discuss details. Tell the truth, Sierra said simply. All of it. It's for Noah and for other children like him. It's something that matters. Perhaps the real question isn't why a preschool teacher would enter the life of one of Atlanta's wealthiest men, but why we're so quick to assume the worst when sometimes the simplest explanation is also the truest. People find each other when they need each other most. Julian reached for her hand, squeezing it gently. For the first time in weeks, Sierra felt something like peace. Diane Parker's article was on the front page of the lifestyle section. I think he was hoping you might come back. The question was whether standing her ground would cost her everything else she had worked for. After a pause, he added, Noah had a good night. When she arrived, she was surprised to find several parents waiting to speak with her. He ate all his dinner and even participated in his bedtime routine without resistance. It focused on Noah's progress and Julian's journey as a single father, with quotes from Dr. Chen about the importance of emotional connection for children with autism. The narrative was shifting, and she felt a weight lifting from her shoulders. When Sierra walked into the school, she spotted the reporter immediately, a sharp-looking woman in a tailored suit, talking with Principal Jenkins in the main office. Ms. Monroe, thank you for coming, Principal Jenkins said, looking relieved and worried at the same time. The reporter extended her hand with a practiced smile. Ms. Monroe, I'm hoping we can have a quick chat about your relationship with Julian Vale. Let's be clear about something first, Sierra said, not taking the offered hand. 3 figures again, but this time they were clearly defined. Julian, Noah in his wheelchair, and Sierra all holding hands. Diane's smile faltered slightly. My sources are confidential. Your source is trying to hurt innocent people, including an 8-year-old boy with special needs. Sierra's voice was calm but firm. He hasn't responded directly to a question in months. Thank you for the drawing, I'll keep it forever. Principal Jenkins glanced at her watch. Noah seemed more relaxed than Sierra had ever seen him, occasionally looking between her and Julian, as if to make sure they were both still there. Sierra nodded and led the way to the small conference room down the hall. He was holding the blue block in one hand and a piece of paper in the other. Sierra helped Noah navigate his wheelchair over the garden path, while Julian walked beside them. What exactly is Tiffany claiming now? Diane pulled out a notebook. She says Julian Vale paid you to pretend to care about his son as part of an arrangement to improve his public image. Sierra laughed without humor. Text messages? Between whom? The dining room was decorated with blue flowers, and Noah's favorite foods were on the menu. She claims to have communications from someone inside the Vale household, Diane said, watching Sierra's reaction carefully. That's a lie, Sierra stated flatly. Diane seemed unfazed. We're prepared for that possibility. Are you prepared to hurt a child? Sierra asked, leaning forward. The reporter's expression softened slightly. I'm not trying to hurt a child, Ms. Monroe. Then you're following the wrong story, Sierra said. Sierra took a deep breath. If you want the truth, I'll give it to you. Diane studied her for a moment, then nodded. I'm listening. For the next half hour, Sierra told her everything. How she'd met Julian and Noah. Her initial anger at learning the dinner was a setup, the genuine connection she'd formed with Noah. And yes, the feelings that had developed between her and Julian. I didn't know who Julian Vale was when I agreed to that dinner, Sierra concluded. Diane had been taking notes throughout. Was generous and appreciated, but had nothing to do with my feelings for Noah or Julian, Sierra said firmly. And now? Why are you telling me all this now? Sierra met her gaze. Because I'm tired of hiding. I care deeply for Noah and Julian. The reporter closed her notebook, looking thoughtful. You know, this isn't the story I came here expecting to write. Will you write the truth? Sierra asked. All of it? I'll write what I believe after hearing both sides, Diane replied diplomatically. But I appreciate your candor. As they stood to leave, Sierra added, One more thing. Julian doesn't know I'm talking to you. Diane raised an eyebrow. That's unexpected. Because it doesn't fit the narrative that he's controlling everything? Sierra smiled slightly. When they returned to the main office, Sierra was surprised to find Julian waiting there, talking quietly with Principal Jenkins. Sierra, are you okay? He asked, coming to her side. I'm fine, she assured him, just setting the record straight. Julian turned to the reporter, his expression hardening. Miss Parker, I presume. My lawyers will be interested to know you're harassing Ms. Monroe at her workplace. Julian, stop, Sierra said, touching his arm. I chose to talk to her. It's okay. Diane Parker looked between them with obvious interest. Before Julian could respond, Principal Jenkins intervened. I think that's enough for today. The reporter handed Sierra her card. Thank you for your time. The article will run tomorrow. What did you tell her? Julian asked once they were alone in the hallway. The truth, Sierra said simply. All of it. His face showed a mixture of concern and admiration. You didn't have to do that. Yes, I did. For Noah. For my students who deserve a teacher who isn't constantly distracted by gossip. And for myself. Julian's expression softened. Does that mean... It means I'm willing to try again, Sierra said carefully. The smile that broke across Julian's face made her heart skip. That's all I'm asking for. Principal Jenkins approached them, looking uncomfortable. Sierra, I hate to interrupt, but there's another matter we need to discuss. About your position here. Sierra's stomach dropped. No, Principal Jenkins said quickly. That's not fair, Sierra protested. I haven't done anything wrong. I agree, Principal Jenkins said. Julian stepped forward. If I may, I have a suggestion. Both women stared at him in surprise. That's a significant proposal, Principal Jenkins said cautiously. Noah needs more socialization with other children, Julian continued. Sierra was speechless. The idea was perfect. Meaningful work that would use her skills, help children like Noah, and potentially resolve the media problem. The board would need to approve it, Principal Jenkins said, but Sierra could see she was already warming to the idea. Of course, Julian agreed. As Principal Jenkins walked away to make a phone call, Sierra turned to Julian. You didn't have to do that. I wanted to, he said simply. It's not just for you, though I'd do anything to make you happy. Sierra was touched by his thoughtfulness. Julian's eyes were serious. I'm trying to, every day. The next morning, Sierra woke up early and immediately checked the newspaper online. Love, Not Money, the real story behind Julian Vale's search for connection. The article was surprisingly fair, presenting both Sierra's perspective and acknowledging Tiffany's claims while questioning her motives. The final paragraph made Sierra's breath catch. In a world where wealth and power often dominate headlines, the quiet story of a father's love for his son and a teacher, his natural gift for connection, reminds us of what truly matters. Her phone rang. It was Julian. Have you seen it? He asked without preamble. Yes, Sierra said, still processing. It's not what I expected. It's honest, Julian said, which is all you asked for. Sierra smiled. That's wonderful. He kept looking at the door, though. I will, Sierra promised. How about this afternoon? He'd love that. We both would. After hanging up, Sierra got ready for school with a lighter heart than she'd had in weeks. We read the article, said Mrs. Thompson, mother of one of her students. We want you to know we support you. My cousin has a child with autism, added Mr. Patel. What you did for that boy, it matters. Throughout the day, Sierra received similar comments of support from colleagues and parents. That afternoon, when she arrived at Julian's house, she found them both waiting in the garden. Julian sitting on a bench, Noah in his wheelchair beside him. Look who's here, Noah, Julian said as Sierra approached. Noah looked up, and Sierra was sure she saw the hint of a smile. Hi, Noah, Sierra said, kneeling beside his wheelchair. I'm so happy to see you. Noah pushed the paper toward her. It was another drawing, more detailed than the last. It's beautiful, Sierra said, deeply moved. Is this us? Noah nodded. A clear, deliberate movement. Julian's eyes widened. Sierra smiled at Noah. For the next hour, they stayed in the garden, enjoying the simple pleasure of being together. As the sun began to set, Julian suggested they go inside for dinner. You're good at that, Julian commented, as Sierra expertly managed the wheelchair over a small bump. I had a student with cerebral palsy last year, she explained. I learned a lot about wheelchair accessibility. Inside, Maria had prepared a special dinner to celebrate Sierra's return. Maria was almost as happy as Noah when I told her you were coming back, Julian said with a smile. During dinner, Noah surprised them again by reaching for Sierra's hand when she offered him a bread roll. The touch was brief but deliberate, another breakthrough. Dr. Chen is going to be amazed at his progress, Julian said, his voice filled with emotion. After Noah was settled in bed, Julian invited Sierra to the living room for tea. They sat together on the couch, the events of the day creating a new sense of ease between them. Principal Jenkins called me this afternoon, Julian said. The board is interested in the special needs program. It's completely your choice. I just wanted to create an option that might make things easier for everyone, though I haven't decided if I want to change positions. They want to meet next week to discuss details. I've been so focused on controlling everything that I forgot how to actually live. But I want you to know that whether or not we have a future together, I'm committed to being a better man and a better father because of you. That's great news, Sierra said. I just wanted you to know where I stand. Of course, Julian said quickly. Sierra studied his face. When they finally broke apart, Julian's eyes were shining. You really meant it, didn't you? About trying to change. Julian nodded. After you left, I realized how much I'd been hiding. From Noah, from myself, from everyone. He reached for her hand, his touch gentle. Sierra, I don't know if I deserve another chance with you. It's about choosing, and I choose this. I choose both of you. Sierra felt the walls around her heart crumbling. Julian, The special needs inclusion program had been up and running for 3 months, and the results were already exceeding everyone's expectations. He was attending the program 3 mornings a week, gradually adjusting to the school environment with remarkable progress. He still used his wheelchair and didn't speak much, but he was engaging with other children in ways no one had thought possible. So you don't have to say anything, he interrupted softly. I know you need time. The other children were used to seeing him by now and waved hello. Gone was the tightly controlled, isolated man she'd first met. In his place was someone who smiled easily, who had started attending parent support groups, who had invited Rebecca's family back into their lives. He waved back, his eyes finding Sierra's across the room. Sierra looked into his eyes and saw something she hadn't fully recognized before. Vulnerability, yes, but also strength. Noah made a flower for you. Still on for dinner tonight? I have that meeting with the adoption agency at 4, then I'll come straight over, he asked. There will still be challenges, the media, people's assumptions about us. Julian had proposed on a quiet evening 3 months ago, presenting her with a simple but elegant ring that suited her perfectly. The strength to admit mistakes, to change, to open his heart despite the risk of more pain. I don't need more time, she said, surprising herself with the certainty in her voice. I know what I want, she asked, kneeling down to his level. We don't want to be late for lunch with Aunt Eliza. He shared materials with Zoe and even helped Marcus with his painting. "What's that?" Julian asked, his expression cautious but hopeful. He clutched his painting, clearly intending to take it with him. Then she looked at the paintings on her wall, at the engagement ring on her finger. And in staying, she had found everything she never knew she was looking for. And at the small framed photo on her desk, Julian, Noah, and herself at the park, surrounded by autumn leaves. It was Noah's first spontaneous hug since the accident. But standing there, surrounded by the evidence of love and growth and new beginnings, Sierra knew she was exactly where she was meant to be. "I love it and I love you." Instead of answering with words, Sierra leaned forward and kissed him, softly at first, then with growing confidence as he responded, "Are you sure?" There were several of Noah's creations there already, including the first drawing of the three of them. "I'm sure," Sierra said firmly. "I'm not walking away again, Julian, not from Noah and not from you." Julian pulled her close, his arms strong and secure around her. "I don't deserve you." "It's not about deserving," Sierra said, resting her head against his chest. 6 months later, Sierra stood in the doorway of her new classroom at Little Stars, watching as her students worked on an art project together. Noah sat at a table with 2 other children, carefully painting a blue flower. "Ms. Monroe, look," called Zoe, one of her regular students who had become Noah's self-appointed helper. Sierra came over to admire Noah's painting. "It's beautiful, Noah. Is blue still your favorite color?" Noah nodded, making eye contact briefly, something he was doing more and more these days. Julian appeared in the doorway right on time to pick up Noah. The changes in him were as remarkable as those in Noah. "Ready to go, buddy?" Julian asked, coming to Noah's table. Noah carefully set down his paintbrush and allowed his father to help him into his wheelchair. "Noah did wonderfully today," Sierra told Julian. Julian beamed with pride. "He's been practicing his sharing at home with those new blocks you got him." As they prepared to leave, Julian glanced around to make sure the children were occupied, then quickly kissed Sierra's cheek. "Absolutely," she replied with a smile. They had been discussing adoption, adding to their family once they were married. "I love you," he said softly, for her ears only. "I love you too," she answered. "Both of you." Noah tugged on Sierra's hand then, offering her the painting he'd made. "Is this for me?" Noah nodded, then did something that made tears spring to her eyes. He leaned forward from his wheelchair and wrapped his arms around her neck in a brief but definite hug. Julian watched with tears in his own eyes. "Thank you, Noah," Sierra whispered, her voice thick with emotion. As Julian and Noah left, Sierra hung the painting on her special wall, the one reserved for artwork that meant the most to her. Sierra looked around her classroom, at the children working together, at the blend of typical students and those with special needs, all learning from each other. She had never imagined her life taking this turn, never expected to find a family in such an unexpected way. When fate had given her the choice to walk away or to stay, she had chosen to stay. The end.